Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Seth Joyner. Welcome back. Hey, I missed you guys, man. It was some much needed time off, but guess what? At the same time, here we go. The new season is upon us. The new year is upon us. Um, Today, we're going to do it a little different. There's so much going on in the world of football right now. Tomorrow, the official day begins where the 2022 season officially kicks off. Let's talk about, everything that's going on, not only with our Philadelphia Eagles, but everything that's going on around the NFL. It has been one heck of a couple of weeks since the Super Bowl wound down. And now, here we go. Tomorrow, free agency period begins. The preparation has already begun for the 2022 NFL draft, and looking forward to seeing what our Eagles do, but also looking forward to see what kind of moves Howie Roseman is going to make at this time. So much going on. Tom Brady retiring and unretiring. I'm kind of glad Tom's coming back. I was a little disappointed, after they went out in the NFC in the playoffs, and all of a sudden, Tom was just going to bow out. You're going to go out like that. I was just, it just felt weird to me that, he was going to go out on that note, and then all of a sudden, boom, Tom's coming back right before free agency kicks off. I think that guy's got a lot of good football left in him. In my opinion, I thought and believed that, he was the MVP last year. You could have given it to either Aaron Rodgers or him. But I thought, the numbers that he put up under the circumstances last year, I thought he played phenomenal. You got quarterbacks moving. Obviously, the big news is Russell Wilson after saying that, hey, I'm staying put. I'm going to get it done right here in Seattle. And then out of nowhere, the move to the Denver Broncos. A lot of people feel as though this move for the Denver Broncos is the move that they've been missing for a long time. And it's the move that puts them in a position to to be a Super Bowl contender. It's possible. Nothing's etched in stone, but it's possible. Aaron Rodgers, with all the drama, and then deciding to come back, signing a 4-year, $200 million deal with 150 plus guaranteed. Gosh, my mom and dad had me way too early, man. My goodness. The interesting thing is going to be how they navigate Davante Adams, because that at the end of the day, those two guys are connected at the hip. That's a lot of money to put into the quarterback, realizing that you now have a wide receiver that says that he's not playing under the $2 million tender, the $20 million tender, and that he wants $20 million per year on a multi-year deal. How are they going to work that out? Because I can tell you right now, even though they got Aaron Rodgers, in the coffers, he's not going to be a happy camper if he doesn't have his ace number 17. What else is going on? Jimmy G stumbled through the playoffs once again. A lot of talk, a lot of concerns about where he's going to wind up. I do think that they'll move him where. It'll be interesting to see. I think Jimmy G is what he is. Even though, he's had a good run, a good record, in San Francisco, I'm not so sure that, it hasn't been the system and the players around him that's helped him be, that productive. I think the more responsibility or the more responsible he has to be as a quarterback for a team's success, the less likely that team is going to, have success. I think so at the end of the day, it's going to be really interesting to see where he winds up. You get the Pittsburgh Steelers scooping up Mitchell Trubisky after, he's had a good little turnaround in Buffalo. Really, really interested to see, how all that works out. And I guess the biggest for me, the biggest news is, well, let me hold up. That's not the biggest one. Okay. Another quarterback gets traded right back to the division. You guys know him as Carson Wentz. Hey, I told you guys not last year, but the year before last in week 4, I said, the Eagles got a quarterback problem. Everybody thought that I was crazy. Everybody thought that I had lost my mind because I thought that Carson Wentz was a problem, that he was broken, that he had no confidence. Well, he bitched his way out of Philadelphia at the end of last season. He goes to Indianapolis and takes an 11-5 teams and turns it into a 9-7 team and doesn't even make the playoffs. Now he finds himself with the Washington football franchise, or the Washington Commanders, I should say, and right back in the division with the Philadelphia Eagles once again. And some of the same issues, some of the same chatter that followed him out of Philadelphia last year, followed him to Indianapolis, and then now is following him once again, 3 teams in the last 3 years, following him to Washington. In the comments down here, you guys can just chime in, and we'll go through some of your, some of your questions and some of your comments here, because I believe that Carson is done, man. I think that his confidence is shattered. I think that his reputation will follow him everywhere that he goes. It's going to be very, very difficult for him to, become the type of leader. Not only does he not, in my opinion, know how to be that leader, but I also think that it's going to be difficult for him to be that guy because he doesn't know how to get out of his own way, so to speak. When you're the quarterback, you have to be the guy that galvanizes the team. You got to be the guy that everybody on the team likes. You got to be the guy that everybody on the team will fight for, not just the offensive side, but the defensive side. You got to be inclusive with everybody on the football team, even guys that don't believe what you believe or think how you believe or have faith in what you have faith in, no matter what the circumstances are. You have to be the glue that pulls everything together. And I just know that he can't do that. I just know that it's beyond the realm of his abilities, his social abilities to be that guy. I see you, Jeanette. I ain't gonna let you sneak by there. Jeanette says, wants to know, do I believe the story with Darren Sproles? Absolutely, I do. Okay? Because listen, where there's smoke, there's fire. And there's been a whole lot of smoke surrounding Carson Wentz for the last 5-6 years. Okay? And when you begin to hear things like that, there is some validation, to some of that. It might not be 100% true. You might not get all of it just the exact way that we're getting it now, but trust me, there's some validity to that story and what happened. Okay, and now he finds himself with Washington, and it'll be interesting to see how his ex-teammates, I should say, reacts to having to play him twice this year. Or what? Hey, can he actually go there and win the job? Can he beat out? I mean, listen, they traded for him, so that cap number is going to be high. But can he beat out Tyler Heineke down in Washington? He didn't like competition. One of the reasons why he cried his way out of Philadelphia. Okay, he wanted to go somewhere where somebody just was going to give him the job. And guess what? Everybody cried, Frank Reich, Frank Reich. Frank Reich couldn't fix him. If Frank Reich couldn't fix him, what the hell makes you think that Ron Rivera is going to be able to fix him? All right, let's move on. And the biggest news in the quarterback realm for me was Deshaun Watson. Hey, listen, at the end of the day, I don't know what happened. I don't even want to speculate on what happened. But if the grand jury decided that they weren't going to bring charges, then I'm applauding for this kid. I want this kid to revive himself and revive his career, everything, because all you could see was just a good person. Do we as young athletes get caught up in some dumb stuff and, say and do some dumb things? Maybe he put himself in some positions. But I don't think I ever would have saw him doing the things that he was accused of doing at the level that he was accused of these things happening. So hopefully, he can figure out, how to get himself back together, get traded somewhere. I know a lot of you guys want him in Philadelphia. I would love him in Philadelphia. I just don't think that he's the right move for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'll tell you why. Everyone wants to believe that, and this is the fallacy of what happened with the Super Bowl this year, okay? You had one team that traded their number one overall draft pick away for a maligned guy, in a different division, okay? Great move for the Rams, but the Rams have mortgaged their future and everything else to be able to win a Super Bowl. And you have to ask yourself, my goodness, what position does this put the Rams in if they don't win? But let's look at the Rams pre Matthew Stafford, okay? They had good running backs. They had good wide receivers. They had the best defensive player in the league. They had a great defense. They have arguably the best, cornerback in the league. They were solid across the board. And all they needed was a quarterback to get over the hump, okay? I've had debates and arguments with people. Oh, look what Joe Burrow did, and Joe Burrow's the reason. Come on, man. Joe Burrow had wide receivers and running backs, okay? And while their defense, you couldn't, there's no household names on that defense, they weren't bad. Their Achilles heel was their offensive line, and it wound up, hurting them down the stretch. Now, this is not to take anything away from Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow's a bad boy, okay? At the end of the day, he is a bad boy, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him. But I also believe that, Joe Burrow doesn't accomplish what he accomplishes without T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, Mixon, Uzama, P. Ryan. Come on, he's not doing all of that stuff without that kind of talent. That leads me to say, okay, if the Eagles went and got Deshaun Watson, okay, the way they're currently constructed, is that enough? That's not enough. It's not enough for this team, this organization right now to make a Super Bowl run. It's impossible. It's impossible. We're not good enough on the defensive side of the ball to be able to stop some of the better offenses in the league. We proved that last year when we played against the Rams, not the Rams, the Chargers, when we played against Kansas City. We gave up 93 total points in 2 games against the Dallas Cowboys last year, okay? 93 points in 2 games. Just in case, some of you guys got problems with math, that's 41 and a half points per game to your most hated rival, okay? offensively, we got a tight end and a number one running back. We don't have any other weapons on the offensive side of the ball. I believe in Miles Sanders, but Miles Sanders has got to prove that he can stay healthy. I believe in Kenneth Gainwell, but Kenneth Gainwell's got to prove that he can learn how to pick up the blitz, because teams aren't going to just let you put him in and sneak him out of the backfield and make things happen. The minute he gets in, because teams understand that he has problems with blitz pickup and protections, they're going to start bringing pressure the minute that he checks into the game. That's an automatic defensive check, just because they know that he's not sure and he doesn't know what he's doing in protection. Okay? So the Philadelphia Eagles are not a team that is just a quarterback away. They need much more grooming, much more building. And the Eagles have 11 picks in this draft. Even if you was going to go and get Deshaun Watson, you're giving up no less than 2 of those first rounders and Jalen Hurts. Maybe another defensive player. That's what it's going to cost you in order to go and get him. Okay? And then you go and get him, and you're not equipped to win. He's going to be frustrated. When his contract runs out, he's going to be trying to leave the city. The proper way that you build a football team is always the same, okay? You start in the trenches. You build an offensive line, you build a defensive line, and then you build outward. And then once you get your players in place where you feel like you're in a position to be able to compete, now you mortgage the resources to go get that player, whether it's a quarterback or whether it's a player on the defensive side of the ball, whether it's a corner or a safety, no matter what it is, that's when you do that, okay? But the Eagles are in a prime position this year to build this roster, to fill some holes, okay? They're $30 million under the cap, which means that they're going to be able to go out and make some noise in the free agent market. They need a wide receiver. They need a veteran wide receiver, okay? They need a cornerback, another starter out opposite Darius Slay. They need a safety. We just signed Haason Reddick. And in a second, I'm going to segue in a second right over into that and talk about that, because I've got some concerns about that as well. A lot of you guys, may not have those concerns. But these are the positions that are still lacking for the Philadelphia Eagles. And to spend all of those resources on Deshaun Watson, and listen, I love the guy, but the guy's made it plain as day. He's made it as plain as cheese on cheesesteak. But he don't want to come to Philadelphia, man. Okay? And the way I feel about it, after all that we went through with Ben Simmons, I don't want a guy in Philadelphia that don't want to be in Philadelphia. Okay? Let's go after players that want to be in Philadelphia. And let's go after players that make sense. Deshaun Watson doesn't make sense. Russell Wilson doesn't make sense. Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to make sense. None of those guys were going to make sense because this roster is not ready as it's currently constructed to compete. Okay? We still need wide receivers. We still might need another, big body running back. We might need another guy tight end. You need a guy that you can count on just in case Dallas Goedert goes on to be able to step in, not only step in, but maybe even create a little bit of competition. The one thing that you had once you drafted Dallas Goedert between Dallas and Zach Ertz, and happy to see Zach Ertz just sign a 3-year deal, back with the Arizona Cardinals. But the one thing that you had was you had a little bit of competition. You know, Dallas wasn't comfortable. He wasn't satisfied being the number 2 guy. So he went to work and made the Eagles make a difficult decision. Once Zach Ertz started to fall off a little bit and started to want, top 3 tight end money, he just made the decision easy for the Philadelphia Eagles to move on. Now, let's deal with Haason Reddick. This dude from Temple University, drafted originally in the first round by the Arizona Cardinals. Listen, I'm happy to see the kid come home. For the first time in a long time, we got a guy who's proven the last 2 years that he can post double-digit sacks, okay? My issue and my concern is, how are you going to use him? How are you going to use him? He's 6'1", 230 pounds. You can't play him at defensive end on every single play. Now, I know some of you guys probably heard me on WIP talking about this earlier, but for you guys who missed it, let me break it down. Okay, if I'm a defensive coordinator, if I'm an offensive coordinator, and the Eagles' plan is to play Haason Reddick at outside backer on every single play, or defensive end, rush in every single play, then I've got methods, means, and ways to dominate that position. Yeah, they're going to line them up on the weak side, okay? No matter where the strength is, they're going to line him up to the open side, to the weak side. But through shifts and motions, I can put him in a situation where I can make him wind up on the strong side on any situation that he's in at defensive end. Okay, some of you guys want to know how. Okay, here you go. You go 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends, 1 running back. You take 1 tight end and you dot him in the fullback position, right? So let's say that from the defensive perspective, it's strong left. Okay, so the defense is going to line up strong left, and he's going to line up to the right side. Okay, so here, the tight end in the fullback position is my blocking tight end, right? I'm going to shift him and move him up on the line on the weak side, okay? And I'm going to take the X receiver and take him off the line of scrimmage to that side of the shift, right? Now, I'm going to take the Y receiver, which is the tight end on the original strength side, and I'm going to take him off and put the Z receiver up on the line. And then I'm going to motion him to the new strong side, okay? And we're going to run Haason's little behind off the ball all day long, okay? That's my first concern, because if I'm putting on my offensive coordinator hat, that's the way that I can dominate, a player like him, okay? With size and mass, okay? The other thing, how are you going to play him? Again, how are you going to play him? Do you put him in the position that you put Jannard Avery in last year, where you put him in a 5-man front? He's the outside guy on either side, probably the weak side. And you can run all these games where, you drop him into coverage. He'll be a lot more comfortable doing that than Jannard Avery was. Jannard Avery just wants to play the run, and he wants to rush the passer. Okay, I get that. But he gives you versatility. I'm not saying that it's a bad deal. I'm just a little indecisive about it, and I'm not 100% sold on it, because in my mind, I'm trying to figure out how you're going to use it. His first couple of years, and I think one of the reasons why, he didn't last in Arizona is because they weren't willing to put him at a defensive end position. They played him off the ball. They tried to make him an off-the-ball linebacker, okay? And he struggled his first 2 years because now you're asking him to do some things that he wasn't really familiar with. Listen, there are things that the guys can play positions at the collegiate level and the high school level. They can do things at those levels that you can't manufacture a way for those guys to do those things, in at the pro level. So, how are you going to play him? He does give you versatility. You can play him off the ball. You can play him off the ball and blitz him. You can play him off the ball and walk him up late. You can run, under front and run stunts on that weak side where you slam the defensive end and wrap him around. But now you got coverage issues because you're losing another guy in coverage. So he gives them versatility. I can understand why the move was made. And in my mind, I could conjure up, 100 different ways to use him. My issue is I haven't seen Jonathan Gannon use that kind of ingenuity in the year that he was here. So therein, for me, lies, the issue. Yeah, you got a guy that's a straight up, beast. But how you gonna use him? And I guess over time, we'll kind of figure that out. And I think that, we need to see some more diversity from Jonathan Gannon. I don't know how you guys felt about it. I talked about it on WIP a little earlier today. I pretty much said, I was miffed that so many organizations, began to look at Jonathan Gannon as a guy to be, a future head coach. I'm looking at the defense, and I said to myself, okay, I can see if you're just purely looking at the statistics, I can see where you would say, hey, oh, okay, from week 7 on, man, the defense was a beast, but you played Carolina, the Jets, the Giants twice, the Washington football team twice. One of the reasons why, in my opinion, the Eagles were able to get into the playoffs last year is because they played such a weak second half of the season schedule, But when I look at what they did against teams that were 500 or better and playoff teams, they got totally dominated and they had no answer. When I looked at, the Tampa Bay game, when the playoff game, I was excited to see how Jonathan Gannon would do things different in the playoff games than what he did when they played them, in the regular season, the Thursday night game. But as I sat there and I watched the game, it was like watching a mirror image of what we saw all over again. Tom was just comfortable, no pressure. They didn't start bringing any pressure until, the game was over, and it was too late. And I'm thinking to myself, do you think that, Tom Brady and Bruce Arians and for some reason or another, the offensive coordinator, his name, eludes me at the moment. I'm sure one of you guys will remind me here in a second. He, by the way, along with Tom Brady, with Todd Bowles, I should say, should be head coaches in the NFL, but that's for a whole nother show, another day. Byron Leftwich, okay? You think that those guys didn't sit there and look at the film and say to themselves, oh my God, if this is what they're going to give us, we don't even need to put in a new game plan. We can just run what we ran, I don't know how many weeks prior. Just run it again. They have no answer for it. And he literally had no answer for it. Ray Didinger and I sat there and watched the game, and I looked at Ray, I said, Ray, the game plan is the same. They're doing the exact same thing that they did when they lost, I think in week 6 or week 7. They're running the same coverages. They're going to play off. You're going to play off. You're going to play cover 3 from off. You're not even going to bail. You're going to play from off and give Tom Brady the quick out? That's what you're going to do? You're going to line up in a 5-man line against Tom Brady and allow him to know that you're going to run zone coverage behind it? Because when you go 5-man, that means that Jannard Avery's got to cover somebody, or you're going to signal high safety behind you. So if I can understand that and I can think through that process, I'm trying to understand why in the world, Jonathan Gannon doesn't figure this out. And I get it. We live in an era where coaches are, they're aggressive on the offensive side of the ball because, they want to go for it, what the analytics says and what the analytics, purports that, hey, if you convert here, the odds of you winning the game, go up exponentially. But on the defensive side of the ball, I think teams play so much more passively in today's game than they ever have. And it's really disconcerting to me, because whether you lose by trying to take chances and force the issue and create pressure, or whether you lose by just sitting back and letting the team just methodically work its way down the field, you still lose. So you might as well take your shots and take your chances and understand that there's a point in time in every game where, you're just going to have to figure out what it is that you got to do. You got to bring some pressure. You got to figure out how to disguise it, especially against the good quarterbacks, because they're smart enough to get out of the huddle in time enough to pre-snap read what you in, make a check at the line of scrimmage, and take what they want. Big Chris, I'm going to put you up here. Big Chris says Reddick should help this pass rush. Hey, listen, he should. He should. There's no doubt about it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I think that it's a bad deal, that they made. I'm just trying to figure out how they're going to use him, Big Chris. How are you going to use him? How are you going to, access all of that talent that he brings? Because listen, he can rush the passer. And runs in past situations, he's gonna get some pressure. It's interesting to watch him because he doesn't have a whole lot of moves and counter moves. But what he does is, he's quick. He's cat quick. He can beat you off the edge. And, once he gets you to overset and overcommit, he'll come up underneath. And every once in a while, because he's so fast, these guys start running up out of there. And he'll certainly get up under a guy and power rush him, but that's probably good once or twice a game, before a good offensive lineman, has the ability, to sit it down. Here you go again, Big Chris says, he got cover skills too. Listen, I'm not saying that he doesn't. I like the dude. I'm not trying to say that, he's not a good player. I'm trying to say, how's Gannon going to use him? How's he going to mix him up? How is he going to, do some creative things with him? If they can figure out a way to do that, I'm ecstatic about the pickup. Because like I said before, he gives you versatility. He can play off the ball. That allows you, to have that linebacker for once that can rush the passer that we didn't have, haven't had in the past. But he's also the guy that, when you need a pass rush, you can kick him down, put his hand down, and let him, line up in a 2-point stance and bring it in predictable passing situations. We'll see, man. We'll see. Alex over here is saying, let me see, where you at, Alex? Alex is saying Reddick isn't going to be covering man to man. Listen, you don't want a steady diet of it. You don't have to do that. I'll give you guys a classic case in point. Back when I was playing, for the Eagles, we ran a little bit of everything. Clyde Simmons didn't like it, but when we got down in our 30 front, he played, the Will Backer on the open side. And there were times where he had to drop in coverage. There was times, where he had to, cover back coming out on the weak side of the defense. Listen, he didn't like it because we kind of morphed to that defense out of our 40 front or out of our, 46 front. He didn't like it, but it was a changeup. It screwed up blocking schemes. It screwed up protections. It screwed up a lot of different things. So, we didn't give a team a steady diet of it. I'm not saying that you give, the NFL steady diet of Haason Reddick, basically rushing the passer because, you sign this kid to replicate what he's done the last 2 years, double-digit sacks, because you haven't had that guy. You need pressure. You need a guy on the outside to be a difference maker, make that quarterback step up so the two guys in the middle and Milton Williams, can step up and get done what they need to get done. Those things all work hand in hand. The guys on the outside help the guys on the inside. The guys on the inside help the guys on the outside. And the four guys up front help all the coverage, on the back end. It all goes hand in hand. All right. So that's Haason Reddick. I saw today that the Eagles are not tendering Boston Scott and Alex Singleton. Interesting. Listen, I get it and I understand why, because I believe that their tender number is something like 2.4 each. So I know that, Howie is hoping that, that those guys wind up, back in Philadelphia. Alex is a good special teams player. I think it's time as a starting linebacker in the NFL. That experiment has proven that it's not going to work. I mean, all Boston Scott has done is just, when asked to step in and play, is step in and get the job done. I would hate to see that guy leave. And I got a feeling that, someone's going to offer him something to get out of Philadelphia. I think he can be a third down back on another team, a change of pace guy on another team. And, teams are always in desperate need of healthy running backs. I think that he's a guy. That we're not going to see back, at Midnight Green. Ron K just threw this up here. He said, he likes Singleton blitzing. He was real good last year. Ron, can you tell me how many sacks Singleton had? Can you tell me, how many times you saw him? You're right. They put him in situations to blitz, okay? Every single time that they put Alex Singleton up on the line of scrimmage, he gave away a pre-snap read that he was coming. They had nothing off of it, okay? And I don't believe that his sack numbers are all that grand when you really stop and think about it. I like the dude. I just don't think that he's a starting linebacker, in the NFL. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Either he's not that dude or he's not being coached up to be that dude. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on. I see you guys are throwing up all kinds of names in the in the free agency market. Everything from Von Miller to you guys want to know what's going on with talking about a trade for DK Metcalf, Bobby Wagner. I get the sense that Bobby Wagner may wind up in Dallas. That's not good for the Philadelphia Eagles. He'll be back, with his former defense coordinator, who I thought, made a career transformation for himself, last year in Dallas, because previously I thought that, he was just a cover 3 shell guy that, wasn't very aggressive in his play calling. And, he just took his defensive coordination to a whole nother level. And, Bobby Wagner, who understands and knows that defense, would be a game changer for them at the linebacker position. They seem to be looking for another linebacker. I'm not so sure that they don't go get that in the draft because of, salary cap implications. They, don't have the money. But I'm not so sure the Philadelphia Eagles have the money, for Bobby Wagner. I'm not so sure that, DK Metcalf, sitting where he's sitting, I think he's probably a year away from, his rookie deal being up, and what that means to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Von Miller is not going anywhere, but somewhere where he has a legitimate shot at winning a Super Bowl right now. And I think he would look at this Eagles roster and beg to differ whether, he's whether this roster is actually ready to move in that direction. You got Miles Jack, just released by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Listen, I like Miles too. He hasn't been as productive, but he's also been on a pretty bad team the last couple of years. So when you take that into consideration, a change of scenery for him, might bring out, that talent once again, and playing it with better players might bring out that talent, that he had. I thought he was a guy that was headed his trajectory was headed, to, perennial Pro Bowl, top 5 linebacker in the NFL. But I tell you, man, if you don't have a good D line in front of you, I know this, 100%. You don't have a good D line in front of you, it's hard to play linebacker in the NFL. It's just hard, man. And I've seen linebackers with great potential not be able to reach and realize that potential because, they didn't have good players, in front of them. They understood where they fit within the scheme of the defense and things of that nature. So, and then, there's some conversation about the honey badger out there, leaving Kansas City. Where is he going to wind up? His play has kind of fallen off a little bit the last couple of years, and you got to be a little leery about, bringing in an injury-prone, older safety. Listen, we've got that. We've got that in Rodney McLeod right now. Coming off of a torn ACL. A lot of us would expect for him to be a lot more fluid this year than he was last year. Coming off the injury, he should be a lot better. Moving, but you watched him last year, and he looked like his tank was just about empty. But there's a lot of options out there. Alex wants to talk about my man Davion Taylor. I thought that if he could stay healthy, that he might be the answer, if you will, at one of those linebacker positions. But he spent his entire year last year battling injury after injury. And the thing about Davion is raw too, man. Davion needs a coach. He needs somebody who can just, take him under the wing and teach him how to play the game from, in every aspect. Because you can see the speed, you can see the aggression, you can see the size, you can see the want to, the desire is there, But when you got a guy that's just raw, and really trying to figure out, how to play the game, one of the biggest things that you have to have is, a coach to kind of take him by the hand and show him how to make that transition. I think that you guys probably understand and know everything that transpired with him. Here's a kid that, didn't play a lot of football because of his, faith beliefs until he, basically went away to college, and in college, again, you can get away with a lot of stuff on the collegiate level that you can't at the pro level. He was running around just, knocking people, out and making tackles and making a whole bunch of plays. But, the game is much more complex. And the game is much more complicated, at the pro level. You got to be able to think on the fly. You got to be able to preset in your mind's eye and in your eyes, what your keys are, and being able to read those keys and being able to make quick, fast decisions. And it's hard. It's hard for young guys unless you can give them a process of how to do it. The first thing to do is to learn your defense like the back of your hand. Learn and understand what other guys are doing around you. That takes time. And when you get drafted with one defensive coordinator and then, the next year you got another defensive coordinator, that learning curve for, a linebacker, and then you throw in some injuries, makes it, even that much tougher. But, that's the process. Learn your defense and learn, what you're supposed to do, and then begin to learn what the other players around you are supposed to be doing. Then you want to begin to understand through coaching exactly what it is that your keys are, because your keys take you to the football. Your keys tell you whether it's run or pass. And then once you kind of master that and you get locked in on, who you're supposed to be looking at on every play, now you start to game plan and, prepare to anticipate what's going to happen and what's going on. And it's a process for young players, and I was fortunate enough to have, great coaches, coming up that kind of took me by the hand and kind of taught me and showed me the process and how to do it. And when I look at some of these young players today, I'm not so sure that they're getting, that same level of teaching and mentorship. And in a lot of ways, that pretty much, hurts the development of players. Okay. Some of you guys are, talking about Allen Robinson. Listen, there's going to be a lot of interest for Allen Robinson, and I'm all for a veteran guy like Allen Robinson. I had a whole lot of guys on my wish list: Michael Gallup, Godwin, Mike Williams. But teams are smart enough to understand how important these pieces are to their team. A lot of these guys, either going to wind up with or have already wound up with, franchise tags, or teams, put a tender on them, or teams, have figured out a way to, get these guys extended. But, you think about Allen Robinson, and you think about how the wide receiver market has changed because of what Dallas has done, what, the Chargers have done, with their guy, and what Tampa Bay has done with their guy, even though he's recovering, from an ACL injury. There's not a whole lot out there. So the Eagles aren't the only team that needs a veteran wide receiver. So when you consider that, to Mark David Green's, comment here, he wants to know, is Allen Robinson's number too high for us? I'm thinking right there with you, Mark. I believe that, the interest for him is going to be so high that it's going to be really difficult for the Eagles to get in that market, for a wide receiver, of his stature. I'm trying to look and see, are there any other of these guys that you guys keep bringing up? Let's jump over to the draft. Talk about, some of the needs that the Eagles have, and who I like. Mark again. The question is, if Kyle Hamilton falls to us, do we jump up and take him? Or if he falls, do we jump up and take him? Well, listen, we saw what a great player, he was during his collegiate time. his numbers, particularly his 40 number at the combine, was a little concerning. I'm not a big proponent of putting all my eggs in the basket of, what guys do at the combine, because I've seen players run slow 40s but play extremely fast. There is a such thing as game speed. The predictor of how a guy's going to play and how a guy's going to move, are his metrics at the combine. But I think that there are exceptions. When you talk about football, does a guy have a high football IQ? Does he read and react quickly? Is he a great anticipator? All of those things kind of go into, the speed of how you play, because the faster you can think, the more you anticipate, the better prepared you are, the faster you can play. That's why you see some guys that look like, they're just running a 4.2. And some of them legitimately do run a 4.2. But then you have some guys that aren't necessarily lightning fast, but they play fast because they're so intelligent and they understand how teams are trying to attack them and what teams are trying to do. So I don't know. That's a great question. If he falls, do the Eagles pounce? Listen, he's a big safety, a guy that you can play in the box. If speed becomes an issue, you can hide him in the box. But I don't think you draft a safety that high to make him a linebacker. You draft him that high because of, what he can provide for you in an overall way. And let me say this, while we're on, the draft picks, the type of players that the Eagles draft. When I look at some teams, you look at defensive and offensive linemen, and it's not a knock on any of the Eagles players, but some teams just have grown-ass men, on their roster. When you look at Dallas's defensive line, you don't have many guys that are slight framed. These guys are big, strong, aggressive men. When you look at some of these other teams, you look at their defensive lines, you look at the defensive linemen for the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, I don't think they have a D lineman on their roster that's under 6'5", 275, 280 pounds. These are the type of players that I want to see the Eagles begin to draft. Not these slight frame guys that, you look at potential of what they could be, but guys who come to the table with a frame that's already ready and prepared. Guys with leadership qualities. I think on the offensive side of the ball, because of, what we have on the offensive line and Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson, I think we have great leadership on the offensive side of the ball. I think one of the things that the Eagles lack on the defensive side of the ball, quite frankly, is leadership. I don't think the Eagles have had great leadership since Chris Long, Malcolm Jenkins. Since those guys walked away from the defensive side of the ball, I don't know that we've really had great leadership on that side of the ball. And when you're drafting, you have to draft with that mindset. When I look at a guy like Nakobe Dean, that guy is NFL ready right now. That guy is intelligent right now. Is already three-year graduate. That guy is a leader of men. When you watched him play in that national championship game, and he's getting guys lined up, and he's reprimanding the guy who gets in the way because he read the play the wrong way. The Eagles need some of that. They need some alpha males. They need some guys that lead by example, and that also, have the ability to be vocal and speak up and lead, not only, first of all, let me say, you have to always be a leader from a production standpoint, but you also have to be a leader from the standpoint where, guys are looking at what you're doing and listening at what you're saying, and have a desire to be on your level. See, this is one of the reasons why I thought that a guy like the kid that the Dallas Cowboys drafted in the first round last year from Penn State. Gosh, I got so many things on my brain right now that I can't remember players' names from time to time. It'll come to me, or one of you guys will help me out here in a second. Micah Parsons. Thank you, guys. This is why I thought that was such a critical pick for the Dallas Cowboys, because he changed the narrative of that defense. He changed the narrative. If you really stop and think about it, okay? The alpha male on that defense was Jamarcus, okay? Your left defensive end. They bring in Micah Parsons, and all of a sudden, he changes the complete complexion of that defense. Jim says, Brandon Graham. Yeah, BG is a leader, but you need more than one. And when you lose him like you lost him last year, that becomes a major problem, because he can have a voice on the sideline. It's different than having a voice on the field. You need that, okay? But what Micah Parsons brought is a guy who elevated the level of play. And I said that when they drafted him. I said, listen, I'm not going to make the comparison. This guy is Ray Lewis, okay? But I could see the Ray Lewis qualities in him, that he would play at such a high level that it would require everyone else to raise their level of play on the defensive side of the ball. And these are the types of players that I'm talking about that Howie Roseman needs to start to target. We need players who are just alpha dogs. I ain't talking about DOGs. I'm talking about DAWGs with a capital D, okay? Guys that walk the walk and then talk the talk and require everybody else to raise their level of play. That's what the Philadelphia Eagles need in this upcoming draft. This is what the Philadelphia Eagles need to be eyeing as they begin to, build this team moving forward. Okay? Can Haason Reddick be that guy? We'll see. Can Nakobe Dean be that guy if they decided, hey, he's a guy worth drafting with one of these 3 first-round picks? Can Devin Lloyd? Hey, listen, I love Devin Lloyd. Either one of them. I'll take either one. Just give me one of them. I get the sneaky suspicion we ain't getting either one of them. Get the sneaky suspicion that, the Eagles are going to draft a defensive lineman, a wide receiver, and an offensive lineman, and we'll go for another project at linebacker or sign a guy somewhere along the line in free agency. And, that's a little disconcerting because they're in a position, you can just see what a difference maker a playmaking linebacker makes to your defense. This is what they've lacked on the defensive side of the ball for years. I mean, even when they won the Super Bowl, they didn't really have one. They didn't really have one. But the defensive line was just so dominant. But these are the things that I like to see. And we will continue to chat about this, in the ongoing weeks. I'm happy to be back with you guys again. That's an hour, believe it or not, of me just talking and you guys just throwing me questions and comments. I kind of like it, man. And I think that I'm going to try to figure out a way where I can bring you guys into the show. Give you guys an opportunity to do this thing kind of like a radio show, but online, where I'll send you a link and you can come on. I give you, a minute or so to ask your question, and we can kind of go back and forth and take some questions out of here. Because I like being interactive with you guys. It's cool to have guests on, during the season. But when we're talking about stuff like this, talking about what's going on around the NFL and what's going on with our beloved Eagles, I'm not so sure that, bringing you guys into the show in an interactive way isn't the way to go. But I'm going to work on that. I'm working on making that happen. We're still going to have some guests. We're still going to do it that way. But we're gonna listen. There's a lot going on in the NFL. We're not going to just talk Eagles. We're going to talk everything that's going on. We're going to talk NFL. We're going to talk the Eagles. We're going to talk Howie. We're going to talk Jalen Hurts. We're going to talk it all, man. Because I haven't talked football since the Tuesday after Super Bowl. And I'm itching. And I know you guys are itching. I can tell by the comments. I can tell by the viewers that you guys missed the show, and I miss, being with you. But I'm going to sign off now. That's my hour. As always, you guys be good to each other and take care of each other. Come on, Jeff. Nobody want to talk about no Dak Prescott, man. You know what I'm going to do, Jeff? I'm going to have you on next week, man. I'm going to have you on next week. You guys don't know my man, Jeff Taylor. Good friend of mine. He got a great column he's been writing about, the NFL for years. I may have you on next week. We ain't talking about no damn Dak Prescott, though. How about that? But I digress. As always, you guys be good to each other. Take care of each other. But most important, make sure you love each other. I'll see you guys right back here next week, same place, same time, right here on the Seth Joyner Show. Thanks for watching. Make sure you're leaving your comments. Please like the show. Most importantly, go to the YouTube page and please subscribe to the Seth Joyner Show. I'll see you guys next week. Peace.